After church that day, I was walking around the neighborhood or the village there, and all of a sudden, one of the men in the church was a farmer. He began to talk to me about farming in the area. They do not plant the seed to sell the fruit or the vegetables. They plant it in order to survive personally. And he says, we don't have enough land or enough property to be able to commercialize what we plant. So we literally plant the beans to eat that with our family. We're walking around his property there, and we're at that time there are no harvest and there is no seed planted. But he looks up and he says, Bishop, he says, do you see all of those cables spread from one tree to the other? And I said, yes, sir. He said, this is my parcel of property where I plant for my family's survival. And he says, see those cables spread? And I said, yes, sir. He says, you know what those cables are for? I said, no, sir. He says, just before you got here with your group of people, we had to beat our drums in order to scare the elephants away. I said, okay. Because their church was a grass hut. It was a dirt walls. It was grass roof. An elephant would bump into that church and knock the church over. And he says, but during the planting season, when our beans are ripe, the elephants can destroy my survival in a matter of seconds. He says, you see all those cables? I said, yes, sir. He says, we use those cables to keep the elephants out. He says, when it's time for us to harvest our beans and our produce, he says, this is the Portuguese word to English, I don't know if it's going to make sense, but we implant beehives on these cables full of bees. I said, okay. He says, believe it or not, one little bee getting close to an elephant ear will make 1,000-pound, 2,000-pound elephant go the opposite direction of where it's going. That's something worth fighting for. What we planted in faith, we're going to have to keep the elephants out so it is not destroyed what we have